Today's project will involve some basic materials, a number 2 pencil or HB, some Crayola markers, and a ruler. And toward the end, we'll either need a blending stump or a Q-tip will also work for blending. All right, well, let's get started. So we're going to use our ruler and our pencil to begin the layout of our project. I want to get a 9-inch square. So I'm currently working with a 9 by 12 piece of paper. Okay, most construction paper is about that size. So I want this to be a square. So I'm thinking 9 by 12. So the easy way is to make it 9 inches. So I'm going to make a mark. I line my edge of my ruler up here. Make sure it's at 0. And for this ruler, the 0 is actually the edge of the ruler. But that's not always the case. All right, so we're going to mark a 9 inch there, slide my ruler over, line it up again, make another mark at 9 inches. That way I have 2 areas to line my ruler up so I can get a straight line across when I cut off my paper. So line up your ruler with those 2 marks that we made. And if they don't look like they're right, go back and remeasure if need be. Okay, so we have 9 inches measured off. I've marked it on my paper. Now we need our scissors to cut that off. If you're fortunate enough to have a paper cutter, then you may use that as well. But I think most people, scissors are going to be the way. All right, so I'm cutting that edge off. All right, move this scrap out of the way. And now I have my 9-inch square. Okay, so our ruler is going to come in handy again. We need to find the center of our square. So 9 inches, so half of 9 is going to be 4.5. So I'm going to make a little mark at the 4.5 spot. And then I'm going to go from top and bottom and do the same. Okay, so there's my 9 inches. 4.5 is right here. Okay, so I know about where 4.5 is. I almost got that. Perfect. All right, let's slide that over just a little more. All right, so I'm going to make a line that goes from the top edge of the paper all the way down to the bottom edge. And I'm going to go right through my mark because I found the halfway point. Okay, and then I'm going to come up here. And this was the halfway. I'm going to double measure that because make sure I'm looking at the right one. Yep. Okay, so it's the second dot on my page. Okay, I'm going to come across. All right, so I have 4 quadrants. And that is going to allow us to do the art that we're going to make today. All right, so our ruler comes in handy again. Getting caught on my tape where I'm marking. All right, so I'm lining it up with the very top edge and I'm sliding it just back from my line because I want to make some marks and I need that space. So I'm going to make one at the 1/2 inch mark. So there's a mark right there. And at 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, 3.5, and at 4. Okay. And I need to get rid of this little extra mark so I don't get confused later. All right, so you can see we are making a mark every 1/2 inch. This is important for our artwork today. All right, you need to do the same thing going this direction. Okay, and if you want to, you can do them all at once. I'm just going to go ahead and measure across this way so you can see what I'm talking about. But again, I line up the ruler. I slide it down just a little bit so that I can see my line. And then I go 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3, 3.5, and 4. Okay. Now, we still have to do some more on this side. If you want to continue, you can move your ruler and start at the 0 again, or keep going. So 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, and stop. All right, and we still need to do some more down here. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my ruler. Remember to slide it back just a little bit to leave room to make your mark. All right, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, 3.5, and 4. Okay, so now we have all of our markings set up. And we're going to use a series of lines to create a curve. Maybe you've done this in math before, and we're going to use it to make our art today. So when I line up my ruler, I'm going to line it up with this very top marking, and then I'm going to line it up with this very first marking. So first to first, second to second, and they're going to keep going out. Okay, so take your ruler. If you have a clear one, it's a lot easier to see where you're lining things up at. I would make sure your pencil's very sharp so that you can get good, clean lines. All right, here goes the next one. So I'm going to the second one, third mark, down to the third mark down here. And make sure they're lined up really well. Hold your ruler in place. Keep making your lines. You're going to see that curved line is going to start to appear. Okay, there's another one. You just keep moving down and over. So adjusting your ruler so that you hit each of those marks each time, okay? Okay, here comes another one. All right, and the last one right there. It's gonna get kind of close. Boom, done. There, we did a series of straight lines and we've created a curve. All right, so we're gonna do this in each one of these quadrants. We're gonna get each of those set up. So go ahead and do yours and we'll come back in just a moment. All right, I have 3 of the quadrants filled in. I need to fill in the last one. I just wanna make sure that you're doing okay and getting these filled out. So I'm gonna show you. I'm going to go from the furthest out to the nearest in, okay? So I'm going out to here. We'll go ahead and finish these up. So this one's gonna go here. Then I'm gonna come in one and move down one, okay? So very much like how we started, just coming from a different spot might throw you off a bit. Okay, so you keep sliding over one and moving down another one. And if, like I said, if you have a clear ruler, it makes it a little easier to see if you're missing one of your marks. But if you're being very careful and very focused, you'll be just fine. All right, 2 more and we'll have our design. Okay. And here's the last one. All right. So there we go. We've got this really interesting design going here. We've got these curves happening. All right, the next step will be picking out some colors to fill in like a checkerboard design. You could do complementary colors, such as red and green. Complementary colors are colors that are the opposite of each other on a color wheel. So if you were looking at a color wheel, you would see the red and green are on opposite sides of each other. Okay, I also have, let's see, another complementary set of colors would be violet and yellow. They are opposite of each other on the color wheel. Okay, another possible set might be blue and orange. Okay, you don't have to use these. These are just one set of ideas that you might use. I think I'm going to try blue and orange for my first pattern. So I'll set the other ones off to the side. And I'm going to start with my orange. And I'm only going to work in one quadrant at a time because I might do this one color combination and might do this one the same, and then I might change these two to something different. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this spot in this quadrant and color it in orange. Okay, and like I said, you can use whatever color combination you want. And I'm going to skip over, because we're doing like a checkerboard pattern. And I'm just skipping one each time, moving down. It gets a little tricky when you get in these really thin spots, so be real careful as you do that. Okay, then I'm going to move over. This one's white. This one would be my next checker pattern here of orange. Okay, and you keep filling those in. All right, and then I'm going to slide over and do it again. So this is probably the easy part, as long as you're staying focused. Okay. So putting in those colors, sliding over. It's starting to look cool already. But the real cool effect happens when we've added all of our colors and then we do some shading toward the end. So we're using value to create a whole nother effect. Okay, there's another one. And then right here. All right, I think I've got all my orange spaces ready to go. So now, I said I was going to use blue since I was using complementary colors. So I'm going to fill in my white spaces with blue. Complementary colors, when placed next to each other, tend to appear brighter and make things pop a little more. I'm trying to be really careful about how I'm filling in my spaces. I'm kind of outlining the shape and then filling in the middle. That works best for me. My blue's starting to dry out, so hopefully it'll make it through for our example. Okay, a little bit right there. Okay, and like I said, you can always do another quadrant in a whole different pattern. You could repeat this pattern another time, or switch it up with two other colors. All right, so you're still working through, but this is what you need to do. Is fill in your areas. So go ahead and pick another quadrant. So thinking of this area or this area. If I were to do this pattern again, I'd probably do it on this side. Okay, and then maybe do two different ones here, or all four of them can be different combinations. You decide. So go ahead and continue adding color to your project. Now that you have all of your colors filled in, notice I tried some different ones here. I changed it up here, didn't make them match. These two I decided to go ahead and have match. Now we're going to use our pencil. So if you have a number 2 pencil or HB, that's what we're going to use next. We're going to do some shading along the outside edges of our piece that we've just created here. So I'm going to make my darkest line here. Make sure your pencil's good and sharp. I think mine's going to need sharpened. So, all right, sharpen that. Otherwise, the wood's going to dig into your paper and make a mess out of it, and you'll see those little grooves later, and it'll mess up your artwork. All right, so I am making a really dark edge right next to my design. And then as I work out, I fade and I release the pressure. I let this fade out. And we're going to keep going and keep going because this is a pretty big space. So I want to get enough graphite on my paper to make the magic happen here. Okay, so I'm lightening up that pressure, lighten that pressure. Okay, I think we're pretty good. All right, and then I can go back over this spot and bring some of that mid-tone, not quite as dark as right up at the edge, but I want some more graphite. I need to have something to work with as I get ready to blend. All right, so we've got this in here. Got some extra up toward the artwork itself. Trying to get that really deep shadow along the edge. All right, I think I have enough. This is where you would either use your Q-tip or a blending stump, whichever you have available, or your preferences. I'll start with the Q-tip and see how I like that. But if I take the Q-tip, I'm just kind of using a circular motion to blend out that graphite. Once you build up some graphite, it'll work better. Some Q-tips we've found in the classroom, we've used them, is they have a lot of cotton on the end. It might suck up all that graphite before you get a chance to blend. But once you work it through, it works out. And sometimes my students pull off the extra cotton because they said they like the cheaper Q-tips better. All right, but if you have access to a blending stump, those work really well too. Some people would just use their fingers. That gets messy, and the oils from your fingers can get on your paper. All right, so I'm still blending this out. Trying to fade it, trying to fill that in, trying to smooth it. That's what all this does. So eventually I'm gonna run out of graphite, and I'll have just my highlighted area out here. Okay. We're trying to fade it off. So it looks like highlight to shadow, okay? Really cool. All right, so we're gonna do this in each of the quadrants. So the same exact thing, really dark along the edge, gradually fade to midtones, get as light and lighten up that pressure, bring it out here, and then blend like crazy so that you get something that looks more spherical. All right, so go ahead and do that with yours. Okay, so as you keep going, you'll notice that it starts to look like there are spheres, on each side of your design. And this adds to that optical illusion. Now, one thing that you might notice is that you could go back after you've shaded and you've blended, and you might need to darken the area closest to the shape again, just because it helps to add to your dimension and it just deepens that shadow. So if you can, or if you need to, I would deepen that shadow along there, just because sometimes we pick up so much graphite and pull it out that we lose some of that really deep shadow along there. Okay, and then just pull your paper around. Go ahead and catch that area, deepen that further shadow. All right, so that should make it pop a little more. All right, it creates that really neat looking effect. And then you continue on for 2 more areas. Okay, and if you feel like you got too much here, you can always take your Q-tip or your blending stump and blend it out a little bit to help even it, soften it, so it doesn't look too, too heavy or too dark in that spot. It can help even it up. All right, so once you're done with that, once you've done all 4 corners, you get something that's more along these lines. So here's another example that I did. And you can see that all 4 of these areas have been done. And it gives you this really cool effect. And you could do more things with this if you chose to. We're going to call it good for here because you've blended. Okay, and you've had some good practice with value and complementary colors, as well as practicing some measuring skills and creating a really cool piece of art using mostly lines. Have fun!